Hello. It's good to meet you face to face, as it were. I'm Father John Gilmartin, whom you have already met on the audio tape. And in a moment you'll meet Father Vincent Dwyer, the man behind the original Genesis programme. We also have with us a group of young people from throughout Britain and Ireland who are using the Genesis programme in their own diocese. Already, we've looked at the idea that spiritual growth demands real human growth, and that to become holy is really to become the man or the woman that we're capable of being. In the words of St. Irenaeus, the glory of God is man or woman fully alive, fully human. Father Vince is now going to lead us into some deeper understanding of spiritual and human growth and help us to see them in terms of growing along the journey. Vince.
There is a critical question that I hear wherever I go in the world today. And that question is not about doctrine or dogmas. It's a question that rises up from the hearts of the young, the old, the middle-aged. And that question is there anyone who loves me? Or is there anyone who really and truly cares? As Christians, we can respond quickly to that question by announcing the good news. Yes, Christ loves you. He loves you. He loves me. He loves each of us unconditionally. But then where do we find this Christ? Where do we find this unconditional love? Christ needs you. He needs your heart. He needs your eyes, your ears, your hands. He needs your whole being so that you can be for Him a vehicle to transmit this unconditional love which is inside of you and to give it to people who are aching to come to know the answer to their question. This program is designed to help each of you to respond to the challenge of Christ, to discover your own inner beauty, the power that's been given to you to make a difference in the world, to help you to live out your dreams and to believe in your dreams. How are we going to do this? We're going to try to open up this great treasure chest of the church, which contains a rich heritage. It begins with Christ and follows through the apostles, the church fathers, the great saints that have gone before us, the great spiritual masters. These men and women, beginning with Christ, had a profound understanding of the human heart. They had a profound understanding of the difficulties that you and I face in life. And they share this with us, and they share with us also how to respond to these problems and to find the richness of life and the ability to really and truly live out our dreams in following Christ. This body of knowledge is known technically as ascetical and mystical theology. Today it's referred to as spiritual theology. There was a book written some time ago by Arthur Combs, who was a leading person in the field of perceptual psychology. The title of the book was Perceiving, Behaving, and Becoming. The thesis of his book was that your perceptual viewpoint determines your behavior, which then becomes the ground in terms of your becoming. From that, you begin to see that your perceptual viewpoint is very important, because even to change your behavior, you have to change your viewpoint. Now, all of us have viewpoints from the very time we're very young. We breathe them in just like we breathe air. We breathe in viewpoints from our families, from the church, from society, the community we grow up in. And these viewpoints become to really dictate our behavior and the possibility to become. So during this program, we're going to be trying to look at these perceptual viewpoints and to try to get you to surface your viewpoint and then to see how it relates to this incredible treasure and the richness which the church has in terms of the viewpoint of these great men and women beginning with Christ. And to allow you, perhaps at times, to change your viewpoint so that it's more in touch with a foundation. Let's start off with spirituality. Each of you has a view of the spiritual life. Now, there was a time in the church where we talked about the spiritual life in terms of my relationship with God. And God was somehow way up in the sky someplace. It was spirituality of myself and God alone. It was referred to as vertical spirituality. Then came Vatican II, and there was a tremendous shift of viewpoint, and people began to say, no, that spiritual life is really how we relate to one another. And so it became known as horizontal spirituality. Now, both of these viewpoints really are heresies. There's no such a thing as pure vertical spirituality without reference to relationships with one another, without reference to the world we live in. And also, there's no such a thing as pure horizontal spirituality without reference to this unique relationship that God calls us to in terms of intimacy with Him. And so today, we're really discovering that in this treasure chest, we have another understanding, a perceptual viewpoint, and that is that the spiritual life is unique, because each of you are unique human beings, never to be duplicated. And so the spiritual life is God unfolding to you from moment to moment. It is Him speaking to you from moment to moment, and it's your response to His revelation to you that constitutes your spirituality. And so your spirituality is indeed unique. Now, in the past, for many centuries, we've gotten caught up by taking a look at fascinating, exciting human people, many of them whom the Church has proclaimed as saints, men and women who were just exciting, and they really impacted the world. And the most natural thing for you and I is when we see someone we admire, we really want to imitate them, and we want to copy them. But that's really a trap, because if you get caught in that trap and you try to copy somebody, then you're denying your own uniqueness, I always remember speaking to the Franciscans one time, and I kind of shook them up. I said to them, you know, Francis wasn't a Franciscan. Francis was Francis. Francis was spontaneous. He was in love with God. He was in love with people, in love with nature. He made an incredible impact. And so then what happens with all these great men like St. Francis, we have St. Bernard of Clairvaux, St. Dominic, St. Thomas Aquinas, every one of them was an individual who fell in love with God and surrendered their lives to God and became exciting, spontaneous, fully alive, fully human people. I always think that of St. Bernard, one of the saints of my own order. He was a doctor of the Church. He excited all of Europe with his message. And so young men, you know, got excited and say, gee, let's go and follow this great man. So Bernard arrived, and lo and behold, they said, well, what time? He got up at 2:50 in the morning. He had old coffee at 4 o'clock and dried toast and everything. And they copied everything down that he did during the day. And then they said, this is how we become spontaneous, exciting human beings. And then, of course, Bernard left, and they tried to copy him. And so what happens is when we try to copy somebody, of course, we end up denying this incredible principle of our own uniqueness. And we usually, more often than not, we fall far short of our own capacity to be for Christ in the world and to really and truly make a tremendous difference. So it's critical to realize your own uniqueness and your own beauty. Spirituality embraces everything. It embraces everything. When I came out of the monastery, I was convinced that in the Church at that period of history, after Vatican II, that the real problem was in the area of spirituality. It was the area of the internalization of the good news of Christ. Everybody was concerned about changing all the externals in the Church. And yet they were really not facing the real call of the Council, which was conversion of heart. It was the internalization of the good news.